Okay, so yesterday we learned about custom events. We learned about how do we deal with events and the custom events. In that one example we need to finish. We designed a part of example. We learned how to transport data from parent to child and transport data from child to parent. For that we used input properties, we used output properties by using input and output properties. So once we done that, one more, to create events we need one more class. What is it? Event emitter. We need an event emitter. And this is the example. So how do we work? Let's run this. And here we are defining. This is the data coming. Now in this we need to implement this functionality. So the functionality is nothing but when user clicks, right? When user clicks on this, now we need to get only those details. We need to transport data from here to here, right? From child to parent. Then we need to write a custom event. So how do we write the custom event? So in the filter component, for these buttons we need a click event. So what we have to do in the filter component, we have to write a simple public button click. This button click will fire up, and what we have to do is we need to send this button name. We need to send which button they clicked into it. Then every button must have a name. I will give this as electronics. I will this as name as jewelry, and here we need the name as men's clothing. Okay, and here we have the name as women's clothing. That's what we have to do. Now on click we need to send it. So this is expecting a target any type. So button click, on click we have to access button click, and on button click we have to send $event. So we have to collect all this. Yeah. Now we have to send that value through the custom event. We need to create one event. That event should send the value. So how to create an event? We have to design output public event name. Event name I will give as output. We have to import here. We have to import the output. We need another one, event emitter. And here public filter changed. That is the event. It is of what type? Event emitter. Currently we need to send only category name. So it should be what type? String. Is equal to new event emitter. What type? String. Memory is allocated for it. Now when user clicks the button, it should emit the category name. That means here we have to use this dot filter changed is the event. It should emit what it should emit, e dot target dot name. The category name is emitted. We have to collect the category name in the parent. That means in the parent component, in the products component, here what we have to do, we have to write a method get category name. It is expecting what type? String. Get category name is expecting string type. Now what we have to do? So we need to get that. Let's see. On the product component, this is filter. This filter component have a event, that is filter change. Filter changed event should accept this value, get category name. Get category name. Into that we need to pass $event. So we can get the category name. That category related product must be filtered. That means what we have to do, we have to go to the HTML TS here. We have to display only that category related products. So here we need to write this dot, what is it? Load products. It will have http://fakestore.api.com/ what is it? Products / category / here we will put a dynamic value. Dynamic value is E. E contains category name. Which category they selected, it contains that category name. That means now what happens? When I click on jewelry, only jewelry products will come. But see, others are setting to 0. That should not happen. That is happening because we written all the logic with filter. Suppose I click men's clothing will come. Actually what you have to do, count electronics, count footwear, count separately we have to access. We are accessing with one array and we are changing that array. That is the reason, right? That means what you have to do, these counts are there now. Where is it? Products component. Yeah. In the products component, these counts are there now. You should not use the counts like this. What you have to, because you are modifying on data now. Every time you are changing the data. That is the reason. So it is good you do like this. How to get electronics count actually? So we have to get the count like this. I will clean up this. Right. What is the best way? Actually, currently the filter is working fine. That means you say jewelry products will come. Men's clothing will come. It is transporting data. From here to here, we need to send the data. That is actual. What you have to do is, you need to fetch and display on initialization. On initialization, how do we do? On initialization, what we have to do is this dot, what is it? Electronics count is equal to, we have to use the fetch method, understood? Or directly you can write the fetch method. You can say fetch. We have to fetch what? http://fakestore.api.com/ products / category. Category name is what? Electronics. Electronics dot then It will return all electronics. We will get response implies response dot what? JSON. After that, we have to get another, then what is it? Response, not response. It is data. What we have to do? This dot electronics count is equal to data dot length. Understood? That is how we need to apply electronics count. That means its length. That means how many electronics are there. It should get that and display. Now, similarly, you have to write for all the options. That means now you need another fetch method. This fetch method is for which category? It is for jewelry. Jewelry, am I right? And here what we have to do? We have to use which count? Jewelry count, data dot length. That means now you will have jewelry count separate electronics. I click on jewelry, only jewelry products will come. I click on electronics, only electronics will come. The count is not problem now. That is how we have to do. Of course, you can write a separate method for this now. Am I right? So that means if I have to reuse the code like this, we should not rewrite like this. Can you tell me how you can make it shorter? We can create a separate function for it. And we can call the function. In that function, what we will be doing? We will be changing the category name. We will changing the category name and we are changing this count. 2 parameters you can define and you can change the values. You try that. That is already general reusability now. 2 more things we need. One is what? Fetch. What is another one? It is men's clothing. Right. I have to keep a double quote now because I have to use a single quote inside. Right. That is men's clothing. That means it should get, this is which count? Men's count. So it will get the men's clothing count and display. Oh, some problem? Men's, here we have problem, right? Men's clothing. So it have to get that and display. So it will get that and display. Similarly, you need another one. What is it? Fetch. This is women's clothing. And here we have to get what? Women's count. Okay. That will get all the count correctly. Now when you click jewelry, only jewelry products. When you click clothing, only clothing, men's and women's. This is filtering the data and displaying. Now here the main concept is we are transporting data from child to parent and parent to child. Which one is parent here? Products. Which one is child here? Filter. This is child. Right. This is the concept how in real time environment we implement this. Yesterday I gave an example, that is syntax example. In real world scenario, this is how we design. We create and configure those options. So this is one important how to create and work with custom events. I will give this example. In this we have products.component.ts. In products component TS, all this logic will come. And we have products component.html. And in HTML, this all will come. Okay. We have filter.component.ts. In filter component TS, these events will come. And we have filter component.html. In HTML, this will be there. This is all the example. This is the example to understand and work with custom events. Right. Now, once we are good with these all events, so about the components, what we learned till now? We learned about data binding. We learned about style binding, we learnt about class binding, and we learnt about event binding. In that we learnt about custom events. How do we deal with? These are all components related concept. Right? Next important, after understanding components, now you need to know some more things. In Angular, another important you need to know is Angular services. Angular services, Angular pipes, how do we work with them? Actually, in computer programming technologies, what is a service? In computer programming technologies, what is a service? What is a service? What is a service? Providing response to host, right? What is a service? Yeah. No idea. So technically in computer technologies, service is a predefined business logic. Service is a predefined business logic. So you can inject and implement in any component. In any component. It enables reusability. Reusability of any functionality. Any functionality we can reuse. Service main concept is that service enables reusability. It's a predefined business logic. In simple terms, I will tell you here. Suppose you are learning Java, .NET or other technologies, and you learnt how to design a login screen. You know how to design a login form. Now, the question is, how you will prevent your login form from robots? Because on internet, when you upload your website and it is ready to use, the problem you will face with your website is robots will start using your website. Due to that, lot of burden will happen on website. We need to prevent the robots. Then usually we need capture. If anybody asks like, do you know how to write code for capture? That is a wrong question at all. Question itself wrong. Capture is not a code to write. Capture is a service to implement. Capture is nothing but it is an artificial intelligence program. What is the purpose of that artificial intelligence program? It will verify whether the user is a human or robot according to his mouse movement, keystrokes. It is an artificial intelligence program. So, you are after all Java.NET developer. You don't know any artificial intelligence programming. Then how you will write capture? So we will not write. Somebody designs and gives to us, we will use it. Understood? Somebody who knows artificial intelligence programming, he writes it and gives to us. We just inject it into our project and use it. These are services. That means, for example, you want the current weather forecast on your website. That means, according to his location, we need to show weather forecast on the website. Now, will you write some satellite programming? Do you own any satellite? Then how you will show weather forecasting? You need satellite communication to get weather forecast. You need satellite communication to get weather forecast. So that's not your job. So somebody is doing it, and what you have to do, you have to just take that and inject into your project. So weather forecast is a service. Capture is a service. Like that, in a project development, lot of services are there. You can use existing services. You can create your own service and make it available to others. We can create services, and we can use these services and make them available to others. When you are building a project, generally we build services also. What is the purpose of service? If anybody else wants the same functionality, he will use it in his project. They will not write it again. They will not design it again. We are writing and giving them. They will just implement it. That is what the actual concept of service. So what is a service? Service is a predefined business logic which you can inject into any project and use it. It enables reusability. Without rewriting the functionality, we can reuse. Let's see how to do that. Actually, in order to work with service, you need to know two things. Actually, service depends on two things. One is injector and another one provider. Every service depends on two things, injector and provider. What provider will do? Provider will locate your service in memory. That means in the memory, it will check where your logic is. It will look for your service in memory. After it finds it, then what it will do? It will give it to injector. So injector will inject your service into component. That means two things are there. Provider will look for your service, and if service is found in the memory, it will pick that and give to injector. What injector will do? Injector is responsible for injecting that into your component so that you can start using it. So a service have a provider and an injector. It depends on two things, provider and injector. So how to create a service and how to handle. Let's see one example. One simple example we will see, same like we will see how to generate something like capture. We'll see how do we design like capture. So here, how to create a service. What I will do is in our project, I will add a separate folder. In our project, I will add a separate folder. Already we have a components folder. So here in app, I will add another folder, services. We have a folder called services. Now open that in terminal. Open the services folder in terminal. And to create a service, you have to just run the command. Angular service is generated by using the command ng generate service and service name, any name. You can just use this command ng generate. You can use even shortcut yes for generating the service. So we are giving here ng generate service and service name is capture. I am giving capture. Okay, skip test, same. We don't want testing. Now a service is added into your project. Now you can see a service is added into the project. Okay, let's go into the service and see. When you go to the capture in services, I have capture. You see, this is the code. This is the logic generated. And I told you that you have a provider and we have an injector. What provider is doing is, provider is looking for your service in the root level of project. Root level of project. Root level of project means in your project main folder. It is looking in your project root directory. Okay. So, and injector is responsible for injecting your service into another component, right? So, here service generally can have any number of methods. Service can have any number of methods. That means any number of functionalities. So what a service can have? Service can have any functionality, any number of functionalities. Suppose I will give a method called generate code. Generate code is a method. What it have to do is, it should return a code. So I will write some general JavaScript logic. I hope you learned in JavaScript. So there is a math object, math.random will generate a random number. I hope you learned in JavaScript math. Math random is a function which generates a random number, but that random number starts with 0.7. We will multiply with 10 so that we will get a correct positive number. Okay, not fractional minor numbers, right? Similarly, like this, I will generate A, B, C, D, E, A, B, C, D, E. We will generate like this, F. So a 6-digit number. Now what we will do is, we will create code. This code contains this 6-digit number. That means all these are 6 numbers. 6 numbers, single-digit numbers. We will combine them side by side. For that, I will use math.round. Math.round A. Why? Because when you are multiplying a fraction, again a fraction may come. Round will round to the nearest. Okay. Similarly, math.round A, B. Some math.round C. So math.round D. Math.round E. Math.round F. This is a 6-digit number. And that number is stored in code. And what we have to do is return that code. That means whenever user calls that generate code, it will return a code. So we return a simple JavaScript logic to generate a random code. In JavaScript, we use math function for mathematical operations. And random and round are the methods. And generate code is a service method. What is our service name? Capture. Generate code is a method of that which will generate and return a code. That means whenever you call this generate code, it will return a random code. Okay, service ready. I want this in every form. I am designing a registration form, I need capture. I am designing a login form, I need capture. I am designing change password, I need capture. So in every form, I want capture. Then in every form, we don't write this much lengthy logic. We already written at one place. We have to inject and use everywhere. What is the intention? I will design 10 forms. In every form, I need capture. Then in every form, I have to write this. Now we are not writing it. What we are doing, we are creating a service. And we are injecting and using that service. So now how do we do that? See, let's go to, do we have any login page? I hope we designed a login screen. Huh? Yeah, we designed a login screen, huh? Right. But I think it is only normal. Register, yeah. There is a register. Here also simple is there, nothing complex. Okay, let's create this register with good design here. Suppose I am creating here div. This is register component class container fluid. And here we put an option register user. And here we have data list, data term, some user name. Data definition, input type is text. And we have another password. And data definition, input type is equal to password. Okay, and below that, here we will put a verify code and data definition. Here we want to display some random code, right? Now see what we will do. Below this, there will be some button, some register, something. Okay, so let's put this in the startup. In index, we will give app register. That is in the startup register. Okay. In app module, we'll keep register component. Yeah. And register is there. Now here below that verify code, I want some random code to come, some random code to be generated. So what we will do is, we will use this captcha that we designed inside the register component. So let's go to register component TS file. Now in this component, we want to use a service. First you have to import the service. Import. What is the service name? Captcha service. It is imported from services captcha service. So we are importing a captcha service. Okay. Now we need to inject into this component. And very important is here, remember, generally when you are doing this injecting, there are two techniques actually. We have single call mechanism and we have singleton mechanism. Generally, two techniques are there, single call and singleton. Single call means every time an object is created. For example, captcha service is a class. Now, in order to access a method of any class, what we have to do? We have to create an object for which class? Captcha service. Captcha service. Captcha service. That is the class. And through that obj, what you can do? You can access the method. What is the method? Get code. Get code, generate code. We have a method. What is the method? Generate code. So that means we have to access generate code. We have to access generate code. So we need to do this now. We need to access that generate code. This is single call. If I want again through an object I have to access. Every time I need an object in order to access. Generate code. This is not good. This is called single call technique. Every time an object is loaded into memory, it overloads the memory. So we will use singleton mechanism. Singleton means at the time of creating component, inject this into memory, so that we can use any number of times anywhere. While creating object, inject. That means object is created only once and it will be used across any number of requests. That mechanism is singleton. Now let's go into register. At the time of creating register component, we have to inject service. That means where to write? At the time of creating the component, we have to inject service into it. So where to write? We have to write in constructor. Na? What is the purpose of constructor? It defines actions to perform at the time of instantiation. So at the time of creating component into the constructor, we will inject here a service. You see here, I am creating captcha. It is a parameter. It is of what type? It is of type captcha service. It is of type captcha service. But very important is, this is a parameter of constructor. It is a parameter of constructor. Any parameter that you defined in constructor is accessible only in this constructor. But if you want it to accessible to entire class anywhere, currently it is accessible only in the constructor. It is not accessible outside. If you want to access to entire class outside also, then you have to mark it as public or private. We don't use public, we generally use private. Why? Because it is accessible only for this class. That means if I don't give private, then it is accessible only inside constructor, not to class and other members. For example, see now, I am not using this private, I am just giving captcha. And what we are doing is, we are creating a property code. Code is what type? String type, and it is currently empty. We don't have anything inside it. Now, what we are doing on initialization, we are accessing this dot code is equal to captcha is generating a code. We have to access it, and I am trying to access the captcha. It is not available. This parameter is not available here. I am trying, this dot captcha is not there. That means what you declared in a constructor, it is accessible only inside the constructor. But if you want it to access outside also, then you have to mark it as private. Now it is fine. Now you can access, you can see this dot captcha is available. This captcha have a method called generate code. This method is returning a string. It is generating a random code, and that random code is applied here. Now this code we want to display here below. Here we want to display what we want to display, code. Now you can see that here a random code is generated. You can see a code is generated here. I refresh the page once, it will get with another code. I refresh the page, it will get with another code. Every time it generates a random code. Now wherever you need that captcha, you don't need to write that logic. What you have to do, only two steps. One step, first you have to import the service, am I right? After that you have to inject. After you injected, you can use anywhere you want. Anywhere you want. I will do one thing here. I will put here another button here. I will keep this as class btn. Okay. And in this button, I have a span. In that class, suppose I have like bi. And bi, suppose there is arrow 90 degrees up, 60 degree up, arrow clockwise is there, something like this I am defined. That means you can see a button is there like this. When I click this button, this code should generate. Then what you can do is simply for this button, you have to right click. So change code, right? And change code is a function which we have to write. In register, we have to write, what is it? Public, what is the method? Change code. What this change code have to do? It should do this work again, am I right? That means it will get the random code and it will assign to the code. And you can see that, and I refresh again, the code will be changing. That means you refresh, another code will come. A random code is generated and random code is displayed. That is a service. Now what is advantage? If you want this captcha anywhere, just you have to inject the service and use it. So once you make any change in the service, it will affect everywhere. So reusability concerns, reusability, maintainability, testability, we can achieve by using services. This is just one example. Like this, we can use for several things. Suppose we are fetching the data from API and we are trying to use the data in various components. I designed shopping component, I designed products component, I designed some other component. Everywhere I am using fake store data. Then instead of writing in every component, you create one service. That service can communicate with your APIs, get the data from API. You inject that service in any component you want. That will reduce the effort. That will reduce the effort. That means what I am telling here is, I am saying that generally we have a lot of components. That means we usually have a lot of components. We are creating a lot of components. Now, in all these components, we need to access and use some data. Then we are using fetch. Right? This fetch method, what we are doing, we are writing everywhere. In this component I want, I am writing in that component. In another component I want, I am writing here. In another component I want, I am writing here. That's not good. That's not good. So what we have to do here is, we can better create one service. I will give this as data service, or I will give this name as API service. You can give any name. Now in this service, you can write this logic. Am I right? Now what will happen is, this will communicate with your API. It will communicate with your API in backend. Am I right? And now this service you can inject in any component you want. That's simple. That's good. That is the purpose of service. So we don't write the logic every time. We just reuse the logic. That is the intention of service. One example I showed you how we can use a captcha. Same we will see for data. Let's create a service for interacting with data and let's see how we can use. This time we will see, instead of fetch, fetch is not Angular. Fetch is JavaScript. JavaScript method used to communicate with API. Angular have its own methods to communicate with API. I will show you that method now. Let's see. First, captcha example. How to create captcha example? So first point, this is not the real captcha. I am just giving the syntactical example, how random code is generated. So first point, we have to add a new folder into app by name what? Services, and open services folder in terminal. Now generate a new service. Generate a new service. And what is the service? Ng generate service. Service name is captcha. Skip test. Now add the following logic. That means captcha dot service dot ts. In this captcha dot service dot ts, this logic we have written. That is the logic. That is the logic we written. So service is ready. Now once service is ready, now next step what we are doing, add a new component, that is ng generate component. The component name is register component. Okay. In register component we have to inject the service. So register dot component dot what? TS. In TS we have to import and inject. we have to import and inject. This is the logic. Another one, we have to present in HTML, right? So register dot component dot what HTML, and in that we have to present it. This is a simple logic. So we are creating a service and we are defining the service. Let's see how we can create a service for data also. That means here another example, we will see Angular HTTP service, HTTP client service. Angular have ready-made HTTP client service. What is the purpose of this is, it is used to connect with API. Already fetch is doing, but what is problem is fetch also connects with the API and it is working. Already we are doing it. Also connects with API, but fetch have some issues. But the issues with fetch. What are the issues with fetch? First issue is it returns data in binary. What you have to do, you have to convert into JSON. That's what you are doing now. Then response.json. Why? Because it is not returning JSON, it is returning binary. We have to convert into JSON. Every time you have to convert the data into JSON. Another point is, another problem with fetch is, actually fetch is synchronous. Synchronous means when it is fetching, it will block all other requests. It will not allow to do any another work. So that is the problem with fetch. Fetch is synchronous. That means, so it blocks all other tasks when fetching. While fetching it will block all the tasks. That's not good. That means other tasks are waiting. Once fetch is finished, then other tasks will start. We want asynchronous. Asynchronous means along with other tasks, fetch also should work. But fetch cannot work like that. Another problem, so lot of security issues will be there. Another problem is error tracking. It doesn't have good error tracking. That means it will show if any problem occurred, but that problem is not clean and clear. We need some other techniques where we can exactly know what problem occurred, where problem occurred. Error handling is very important. Error tracking is important for developer. That means if a problem occurred, fetch says there is a problem, but it will not say clearly where the problem, why the problem. So that is not good for developers. That is, error tracking is not great in fetch. That is the reason in modern technologies, they use some different libraries for fetching the APIs, working with APIs. And Angular provides HTTP client service to communicate with API. What is advantage is HTTP client uses RxJS. It is a library. It is a library for handling asynchronous requests. That means simultaneously it can perform multiple tasks. It can do multiple tasks. What is the advantage here is, so what are the features? The feature is it returns data in JSON directly. You don't need to convert into JSON. Directly it returns data in JSON. So it is not in a binary form. Directly data is returned in JSON, and it is async. It is asynchronous. Another advantage is handles errors. Error handling is a good option here. It can track what the problem, where the problem, and report the problem. These are very important advantages. That is the reason at JavaScript level, you will learn one technique of connecting with API. In jQuery, you will learn something else. In Angular, you will learn something else. In React, you will learn something else. Now, if I have to communicate with API, my backend API is same. Why front-end technologies are using different libraries? Because every library have their own issues. Which library is good for their technology, they will go with that. Right? So, backend is same, but front-end will be changing. That means JavaScript uses fetch, jQuery uses Ajax, and Angular uses HTTP client. React uses libraries like Axios. Axios is a library for React for communicating with APIs. So our Angular is using this HTTP client. Let's see how. That means now we will see how to connect with API, get the data from API, and use the data without writing the logic every time. Without writing the logic every time. So let's do. I will create a service now. In the same services folder, we will create a service. ng generate service API. Say fake store API. Yeah? Fake store API is the service name. You can give any name. Fake store API is the service name. And skip test. Okay, fake store API service is created. So we have a service called fake store API. Let's see. In the services, we have fake store API service. What I want this fake store API service, I want this to communicate with fake store, get the data and keep it, so that I can use in any component I want. What is advantage? I don't need to write that logic in every component again. So that is the point. So let's do how to communicate with API now. We are not using fetch now. We are using a separate HTTP client. And very important, Angular HTTP client is defined in HTTP client module. You have to first import this module. Right? You have to import this module. Through that module only you have to access. Right? So first what you have to do, where to import our modules? We have to go to app module, and here we have to import. What is it? HTTP client module. It is actually present in import. It is present in from @angular/angular.common. Angular.common. In Angular common we have an HTTP. From here we have to import HTTP client module. You have to import this module. From HTTP common, you have to import that client module and use it. That is how you have to import. Now we need to enable this module now. So where to enable the module? Imports. In imports, we have to enable the module HTTP client module. Now your project is ready to use HTTP client. Okay. Now let's go to fake store services. Here we have to import. We have to import two things. One is HTTP client from common HTTP. Another one, you have to import another very important. So we have to import an observable from RxJS. This is what you need to know here. Actually, I told you that HTTP client is asynchronous. Asynchronous means when it is executing, it will not block other tasks. Other tasks will be executing and this also will be executing. But for that it needs a special library. and that library is RxJS. RxJS is a library. This library is a JavaScript library. Reactive extension JavaScript actually. This library is used in all JavaScript technologies where we need asynchronous methods. Means in any JavaScript technology you need asynchronous methods. You can use this library called RxJS. It is not a part of Angular. It is a general JavaScript library. It is not part of Angular. But it is provided with Angular whenever you install Angular. Actually, RxJS is a separate library. You see, RxJS, yeah. RxJS is a separate library. You can see this is official RxJS. Reactive extensions library for JavaScript. This is for JavaScript actually. All JavaScript technologies use it. JavaScript based technologies means Angular, React, everywhere you can use it. So this is a special library for JavaScript people to make the JavaScript methods asynchronous. And React thinks, React and Angular like technologies, they think that this is very much required everywhere. That's the reason they will give you this library along with Angular and React. That is the reason you may feel like this is a Angular related concept. It is not Angular related concept. It is a general JavaScript concept. That means it is a general JavaScript thing we can use in Angular. That is the point. And we have to import this library. Okay. Now the key point here. I told you that HTTP is a service. HTTP client is a service. So that it allows you to connect with the APIs, get the data from the API and return the data. You are currently using a service in service. What is our service name? Fake Store API. In this you are using a service called HTTP. Now how to inject this service into our service? We have to use same. We have to write a private reference is HTTP. It is of what type? HTTP client. That means we can inject this HTTP client and we can access all its members with the reference of HTTP. Now in this we will create methods. What are the methods? I will create a method public get categories. Get categories is a method. And similarly, I have another method get products. In a service, you can have a lot of methods. So we have get categories, get products. What this method have to do? It should connect with API, get the data, and return all categories data. And very important, while this is executing, it should not block other requests. Then previously we were just writing a method which will block other requests. Now we will make this as type observable. We will make this as type observable. Observable is an RxJS member. What this observable can do is, while executing this method, it will allow other methods also to run in the background. That's good. If you don't use this, it will block this request and it will not allow any another method to run until this is finished. It should not be like that. In the current generation, you may be learning Java.NET, you will learn multi-threading. I hope you are learning multi-threading. You will learn multi-threading, right, in Java.NET like technologies. But you should know that multi-threading days are gone now. Your technology people will have to teach you some advanced then multi-threading, which is called asynchronous programming, right? .NET, Java, they are providing asynchronous programming now. They are providing asynchronous libraries. In the modern generation of web development, you cannot stick with old techniques anymore. You have to need to learn modern programming, and asynchronous programming is now everywhere. Even in Java, even in .NET, we have async programming techniques. What is the point of this? Is less use of multi-threading. Using lot of threads is heavy on application. Right? Earlier, people have to use lot of multi-threading concepts, but now we are using more asynchronous. And this observable is a generic type. Generic type means it should tell what type of data this method have to return. That means observable is a generic type. What type of data you are expecting? We are expecting get categories. Means what type of data we are expecting? We are expecting a string array. Am I right? We are expecting a string array. That means what this method have to return? It should return string array. How it can communicate with the API, get the data? Earlier we were using fetch, but see this time simple. This dot http dot get, that's it. Get from which URL? You tell the URL. What is the URL? http://fake store API api.com/what products /what categories it have to get, but it is expecting string type array. This get also should be string type array. That is important. Understood? Now no fetch, nothing, no convert to JSON, nothing. Directly data comes in JSON only. A simple get method will get the data and it will store the data. Now where is the result? Result is present in this get categories. Am I right? Get categories is a method which is returning all the categories by communicating with the APIs. This is how Angular does. Right? So fetch is JavaScript thing. In the learning levels, you will use fetch. Even officially, everybody recommends fetch at the beginning level. But at expert level, now we will ignore fetch. We will use HTTP client. How to get all products now? I hope you can tell now. Products is returning observable. What type? It is not string array. Array of objects now. Array of objects means it is any type of array. Any type array. That means what it should return? This dot http dot get what type? Any type array. So from where? http://fake store api.com/what products/what category. Not directly products. Only products now we want. That's enough. This is how we do. Now your fake store service is ready. Fake store service is having two methods. One method is get categories, another one get products. Now let's go. We will design one component. I will add one component. ng generate component service demo component, skip test. Okay. And service demo component, we will keep it in startup. We will keep in the startup service demo component. Yeah. We have a service demo component. In index, we will make the change. What is it? Service demo. That is service demo. Yeah. And service demo is working fine. Let's go to the service demo component. And in this TS file here, we want to use the data. We want to use the data. That means now I am just creating public categories. Categories is a string type array. It is initially empty. We want to get the data from API. Earlier what we were doing, we were using fetch. But now already a service is there. You have to just inject that service here. How to inject the service? We will create a private. What is it? Data. Data is of what type? Fake store service. Data is of type fake store API service. Right? That, or I will simply give this as API. Yeah? Any name you can give. It is fake store API service. We injected it. Now what we have to do on initialization? What we have to do? This dot categories is equal to this dot API. API have a method called get categories. Understood? What this get categories is doing? We are reading all the categories, and remember it is an asynchronous method. If it is an ordinary method, we can directly call it. Asynchronous methods are called by using subscribe. They are called by using subscribe. So if it is not an asynchronous method, we directly call it. If it is an asynchronous method, we have to call using subscribe. What this subscribe every data. After reading every data, this data is added into which collection? This data need to be added into the collection. What is it? This dot categories. That means we have to return this dot categories, add into the categories. That means add categories is equal to whatever the data. That means we read the data, means every record we will read. After reading every record, we will store in this dot categories. We will store in categories. That's it. Now you don't need this also, right? Simply you can write the logic like this. Now what you can do? We can access the get categories method. We can read every category returned and we can store that in categories. That means categories is an array which contains collection of all the categories coming from API. Now we are not writing any fetch method here. We are just using the service method, get categories. Similarly, I want, then what we have to do? Products is what type array? Any type array. Don't need to write any fetch here. Just what you have to do, this dot API dot what? Get products. We have to use subscribe, get the data and apply categories. So in any component you want products and categories, only this simple step you have to do, inject and access. So now when we want to present this, let's go to HTML. In the HTML, I want to present all the categories. Roughly I will give here. So class container fluid. Okay, here I will put all the categories. I will put categories. How to present all the categories? We will put an order list. We will put a list item ng for let item of what categories. And for every item we need to generate that category. That means all the categories information it should get and display here. This is working fine. This time no fetch. This time we used the official, the client services of HTTP. And we created a service. And now same products, suppose we are using a table and a class table and table hover. You can design cards and all. Just T head, TR, TH. I will just give here title and I will just give here preview, and we will give a table body, and in the table body in the row first cell we need to get here item dot what title. This row should repeat now. So ng for let item of what is the collection products. I want to display item title, right? Yeah. Another one, in another cell we want to display the image. Image have a source coming from item dot image. So width is 100 and height also 100. Now we are accessing all the products related data also here. It is working fine. This time we are using a HTTP client service. So what we have done here, we added a service, fake store API service. In that service, we injected HTTP client and observable. HTTP client will provide a simple get method to get the data. Later I will show you post method also. We have get and post. Get is for fetching, post is for submitting. While learning forms, we will see how we can post the data to API. Currently we are fetching the data. You have to post the data, but to post the data in your server side technology, you have to learn how to create an API, how to create database tables, how to inject the data into database. That flow I will show you here, how it works. You can try, but initially this is get. Two methods are there. One is categories, another one products. Why we written as observable? To execute asynchronously, right? So that means when it is executing, it will allow the other tasks also to run simultaneously without blocking. And how to inject this? We have to just inject that into our component, and how to execute those methods by using subscribe. Why we are using subscribe method? Because asynchronous methods cannot directly execute. Asynchronous methods are executed by a subscribe. Actually, these words are not new. In JavaScript, I already told you, if you remembered, in JavaScript, we usually learn event. Am I right? If anybody asked what is event, technically what is event? How you define events? So in any technology, whether it is Java, .NET or JavaScript, anywhere, event is a message sent by sender to its subscriber in order to notify change. That is the definition. Event is a message sent by sender to its subscriber in order to notify the change. Actually, you are writing a function called insert click. Now this function, we are writing button on click. On click is equal to, what is it? Insert click. This is an insert button. Am I right? Actually, what happens? This is called subscriber. This is an observer. This is we call as observer. This is observer. And this is called sender. This is called sender. Sender will send a notification to subscriber. Subscriber will perform the functionality. So event is a sender and function is a subscriber. That is technical term. In JavaScript, you will learn that. In JavaScript event handling, you will learn what is event. You will learn how the event works in architectural way. And in that, you will hear these two words, subscribers, observers, senders. These are not new terms actually, right? The point is, subscriber contains actions to perform. Sender will tell when to perform. On click, it will perform. That means here what subscriber is doing? Subscriber is telling what actions to perform. What action to perform? Read every record and return it. Every record and return it. This is important. This is basically the term subscribe, right? Actually, it is derived from your events concept, JavaScript events, right? So that is not a new topic, but here you need to know observer, another one, subscribe. Observer, subscribers, these are important. Observer is to define asynchronous methods. Subscriber is to execute those asynchronous methods. So this is how generally in Angular we communicate with APIs. We have to create a service and manage it. So what we have done additionally here, first we have to import. So in example, first step, we have to import HTTP client module in app.module.ts. If you don't do this, HTTP client will not work. So first step is in app module, you have to import this HTTP client module. And after importing, in imports location, you have to register it. Understood? Already we have forms module now. In the same location, we have to define this also. After that, add a new service. Where to add service already we know. ng generate service name fake store API. So that is the service name I given, fake store API. Now in this fake store API, we have fake store API dot service dot ts. In this is the code. That means we have to use HTTP client and observable. And we have to inject HTTP client, and you can access with reference of HTTP. By using HTTP, we are creating two methods, get categories, get products. Get categories will get all the categories, and products will get all the products from API. Using which method? Get. Right? This is the option. Now we need to use this in any component. So what we have to do? Add a new component. What is the component here? ng generate component, suppose service demo I created. Now what we have to do? Service demo dot component dot ts. In this we have to inject the fake store service. And we have to access the methods and execute. Now we need to store. That means we are collecting the data from these methods and we are storing in categories and products. We have to just present them. We have to present them. This is number 6. What is it? Service demo dot component dot HTML. In HTML we are presenting. In HTML, we are presenting that and using it. This is the complete process. Two services I showed you, CAPTCHA and HTTP. CAPTCHA is our own service. HTTP is a built-in service. But we created our own fake store API service from where we are fetching and using. This is the concept of services, how services are used in Angular. Now once you know this, we can handle both get and post. But to handle get and post, to post you need a form. We need to learn how to design forms and validations. That means now another important in Angular, you need to understand how to design forms and validations. We will see about the concept of working with Angular forms. How to design a form. Already we learned. If you remembered, we learned MVC, MVVM approach. That means already we know one set of forms. There is another set of forms we will see how to use. That we will see in tomorrow's session. And once you know the forms, now we can create an end-to-end application. End-to-end application means communicating with backend database. How we can get data, inject that into that data all. An end-to-end complete example we will see. That we'll see in next session. Tomorrow we'll do that. Okay, right.